Me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai Ose shamayim shamayim va'aretz Aitem lamot raglecha al yanu Adonai shomrecha, Adonai tzilcha al yad yeminecha, yomam hashemesh lo yakeka, v'yareach balayla. Adonai yishmorcha mikora, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzetecha, uvoecha me'ata v'ad olam. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. See, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. Adonai is your guardian. Adonai is your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. Adonai will guard you going and coming, now and forever. When we have suffered a great loss, the fabric of our lives is torn. What was once a whole and beautiful fabric now has a hole in it. And our response to loss is highly individual. Some of us may feel terrible pain. Some may feel numb. Some may feel a certain relief at the end of a painful time. Some may feel guilt, or may feel a lump in the throat at words unsaid. Some may find it impossible to cry, and others will find it impossible to stop crying. Our tradition makes room for all expressions of grief. Our sages teach us that there is no wrong way to grieve, and they taught us to be gentle with the grieving. Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel taught, there are 3 ways to mourn. The first is to cry. The second is to grow silent. The third is to transform sorrow into song. So whether you are crying, or you are silent, or transforming your sorrow into song, know that whatever you are feeling is exactly right. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. And life is a journey from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength, or strength to weakness, and often back again. From health to sickness, and back we pray, to health again. From offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. Death has stilled the heart of our dear Sharon Schwartz. We gather here this morning to share our sorrow, to thank God for the gift of her life, and to entrust Sharon to the gentle stillness of eternity. My friends, in the 3.5 months' time since we last gathered here to celebrate Steve's life and legacy, none of us could have imagined that we would be returning to do the same for Sharon. Sharon and Steve, theirs was a perfect love, a true partnership that was to be admired and emulated. Losing Schwartzy after 52 years of marriage was too much to bear. And we lost our Sharon to her broken heart. We each hold this precious woman in our hearts and minds in our own unique ways. Today, our hearts go out especially to Sharon's family, Kenny and his wife Sharon, Lisa and her friend Dave. Sharon was grandma to Ava and Max. She is remembered today also by her brother and sister-in-law, but really sister, Mark and Susan. Steve's sisters, Marilyn and Norma, and by all of her nephews and nieces, Lee, Andy, Jay and Rob, Paul and Heather, Ryan and Rachel. Our condolences also go to Sharon and Steve's very best friends of 56 years, Annie and Steve Kravitz. Sharon was one of the most deeply loving and caring individuals any of us have ever known. Your happiness, your triumphs, your joy were absolutely paramount to her. And most times, even through life's challenges, Sharon had a smile on her beautiful face. She was always generous with her time and her affection. Sharon shared her immense creativity that flowed unendingly from her. She had an exquisite eye for beauty in all things, whether it was those particular antiques that spoke to her, artwork that inspired her, the glories of nature, the splendor in a sea of perennials. Sharon was always drawn to those things that most pleased her eyes and her heart. She loved the beach and gardening and art, a brilliant woman who always strove to be her best, encouraging others to do the same by her example. She was a voracious reader, and I'm told, a very competitive mahjong player. Apparently, Kenny told me, Sharon was so good at mahjong that she would at times throw a game because it wouldn't look so good if she won every time. Everything Sharon did, she did to perfection. She was an amazing cook and hosted the very best Hanukkah parties and seders, setting the finest examples in all that she did. Sharon was full of class, yet she absolutely radiated humility. Whether it was planting or watching TV or creating together, nothing brought Sharon more joy than spending time with her grandchildren, Ava and Max. In her eyes, they could do no wrong. In preparing for today, I came across this reading by Shauna LeMay that felt particularly meaningful for remembering Sharon. Although I love flowers very much, I won't see them when I'm gone. So in lieu of flowers, buy a book of poetry written by someone still alive. Sit outside with a cup of tea, a glass of wine, and read it out loud or silently, by yourself or to someone else. Spend some time with a single flower, a rose maybe. Smell it, touch the petals, really look at it. Drink a really nice bottle of wine with someone you love, or champagne, and think of what John Maynard Keynes said, "My only regret in life is that I did not drink more champagne." Or what Dom Perignon said when he first tasted the stuff, "Come quickly, I am tasting stars." Take out a paint set and lay down some colors. Watch birds. Common sparrows are fine. Pigeons, too. Geese are nice. Robins. In lieu of flowers, walk among the trees and watch the light fall into them. Eat an apple, a really nice big one. I hope it's crisp. Have a long soak in the bathtub with candles, maybe some rose petals. Sit on the front stoop and watch the clouds. Have a dish of strawberry ice cream in my name, or chocolate. If it's winter, have a cup of hot chocolate outside for me. If it's summer, a big glass of ice water. If it's autumn, collect some leaves and press them in a book you love. I'd like that. Sit and look out a window and write down what you see. Write some other things down. In lieu of flowers, I would wish for you to flower. I would wish for you to blossom, to open, to be beautiful. I would wish for you to align your soul for a time with flowers. At this time, we'll be hearing loving words from many of Sharon's most precious ones. They're going to join me here today to offer their own thoughts and memories. I'm going to begin with her friend of 50 years, Shally Bergen.
After speaking to my very wise Orthodox rabbi on Shabbos, we both came to the same conclusion, that Sharon Schwartz lived her life like a hero. She lived her life full of simcha, full of joy. She lived her life full of love, and if Sharon loved you, you could feel it down to your toes. And she lived her life with a yearning to accomplish, which she did as one of the premier antique dealers in the U.S. She was absolutely brilliant. I met Sharon at age 22, right after I gave birth to Stacy. I met her one day, and the next day I was presented with an impeccably wrapped baby gift. That is a great word to describe Sharon, impeccable. She was an impeccable balabusta. She was an impeccable cook. She was an impeccable gardener. She was an impeccable decorator, and she was an impeccable wife to her Schwartzy. She was an impeccable mother to Lisa and Dave, and to Kenny and Sharon. She loved little Sharon with a passion that is not usually seen by a mother-in-law. She wanted to do everything and anything for her children. Sharon loved Steve's parents, Milton and Pauline. I was there. I saw that love grow, and it was incredible. She loved his sisters, Marilyn and Norma, and she loved their nieces and nephews. She used to get such a thrill out of their accomplishments. She loved Susan like a sister, like you would never believe, and Mark. Her boys were everything to Sharon. She fell over them. Every minute she would tell me about this one or that one, and I used to love it as well. I was amongst the few that she would say I was a bestie. That's the new word, bestie. Another bestie was Lois Davis, a very devoted friend who was so good to Sharon in every way. Sharon also adored Annie and Steve. Annie was her college roommate and a lifelong friend, and Stephen helped her with her book, the Eisenberg original. She was so proud of this book and so proud of Stephen for helping her. But the most important people in her life was Ava, Lena, and Max. She would send me pictures all the time and say, "Shell, aren't my Klenas so gorgeous?" And you are. She adored you. In the inscription in the Eisenberg original book that she presented to me, Sharon wrote, and I quote, "Thanks for always being there, and I would have been there for 1,000,000 years for you, Sharon. Rest in peace with your Schwartz."
Annie Kravitz. There she is.
Well, as they said, I am Ann Kravitz, and I want to share with you the Sharon Schwartz who I loved and admired, my mentor, my friend, and my sister. Sharon had more gifts than anyone I ever knew. She could pick up a basket of trinkets and find that one piece made of 14-karat gold. I like to think that on a spring day in 1966, from a dorm room at Drexel Institute of Technology, she checked out the basket of potential roommates, and she chose me. But like everything that she ever found, the true value of things only became obvious to others after she polished it, or ironed it, or did something else to bring out the shine. One of the words I would use to describe Sharon was one of her own, pristine. She could always find the right level of pristine to meet her very strict standards. In the second year we roomed together, we had a small studio apartment with a kitchenette and bath. I don't know where she learned her homemaking skills, but it was Sharon who taught me how to go grocery shopping, prepare meals, and the laundry. We each had our own study habits. On the eve of a test, I would relieve my anxiety by leaving the apartment and going down the hall for a game of pinochle. I would come back at 10:30 and go to bed. Then I would go to sleep for 3 hours and wake up to cram for the next few hours until I would take my test at 8 a.m. Sharon had a a set pattern every night. We would finish dinner, do the dishes, and then she would study for the next few hours, take a shower, and go to bed. She would never let me disturb her while she was getting her 8 hours of sleep. She would not tolerate me turning on the light, so she made me study in the bathtub. I guess that's why she graduated from college summa cum laude, with highest distinction. After we married and had our first child, Sharon would plan the daily outings with the girls. I followed her like a baby duckling. Whether we went to Pomeroy's or the Dansk and Lennox outlets, I would push my cart behind hers and watch as she would pick out the most beautiful things. To this day, I still have a duplicate wooden salad bowl, a glass water pitcher, and a set of 4 square candy dishes. Oh, we had fun. As history was to show, we followed each other around until Pittsburgh, the great dividing point in our lives. That was when Stephen and I moved there for 25 years. But from afar, she was still pulling many of the important strings. After the move, we purchased a dining room set, and only Sharon could select just the right mirror for over the credenza. She went shopping at Wanamaker's and had the perfect mirror shipped out to us in Pittsburgh. In the year 2000, when we decided to put in a new kitchen, only Sharon could design it. She flew out to Pittsburgh to work with the designer, and in 2004, when we built a new home, Sharon accompanied us to the design center. If Sharon was advising on any project, there were never any regrets. She always had the right answers. Then there was Sharon the Saver. Nobody had a larger collection of food coupons in those early days of marriage. Does anyone remember double coupons? She was like a magician, with a fistful of coupons in one hand and a grocery circular in the other. She would turn those items into 4 boxes of Cheerios instantly for free. If there was a bargain to be found, just a minute, Sharon would find it. She always had me save the Bed and Bath & Beyond coupons for her because they never had expiration dates. And after the pandemic, her first outing was to Home Goods. But what about Sharon the woman? She can be defined by love and kindness. She was one of the most thoughtful people I have ever known. And she was also defined by tradition. Nobody in the family will ever forget the many, many, many years of Hanukkah parties she hosted. We all got together in the Schwartz home to watch our children grow and then to watch their children grow up. It never mattered what was happening in her life that could make it more difficult for her to entertain, but she never dropped the ball. Memories were created in her dining room. Just before she moved permanently to Florida, she had an estate sale. Just before we started our weekly canasta game at one time, she said to me, "I want you to look around and select one thing that you would like to have." I couldn't think of what that one thing should be, but all of a sudden it came to me. I selected an exquisite glass bowl that sat on her coffee table in the living room. I told her that was my selection because when I would sit in the living room, away from the kids who were in the family room during a Hanukkah party, I would always think of that beautiful bowl for what it was, and for me it was a bowl full of memories. Sharon was the consummate balabus. Nobody set a more beautiful table or prepared more delicious food. For many of us, one of her most treasured recipes was for roast chicken. Knowing how much my Stephen loved it, she would often use a chicken dinner as a thank you for something she appreciated. Stephen had, on many occasions, tried to duplicate her recipe, but it never tasted the same. We couldn't figure out, was it the pan or the oven, and once he even tried using a kosher chicken with no success. Then there was Sharon, the games player. She never met a game she could not win. In later years, the only game in town was mahjong. But when she would visit us in Pittsburgh, there was rummy cub and backgammon when the kids went to bed. The guys would watch television and we would take out the games. And there too, she would excel. Unless she was distracted by something, she always beat me. Not only did she have a sharp mind, but a little luck too always seemed to find her. When Lisa and Kenny were more than not on their own, she started to frequent antique shops and garage sales. Once again, that sharp mind sought out the treasures that she would collect and that she used to start her own business of times gone by. Her greatest success was when she discovered her first piece of Eisenberg costume jewelry. From that first piece, she collected over 500 pieces of this amazing quality jewelry. And of course, from there came the Eisenberg jewelry book she wrote with a friend and illustrated by her dear friend and my husband, Stephen. They spent hundreds of hours together over 3 years creating her masterpiece book that was one of her greatest achievements. As a result of the book and her meticulously put together collection of costume jewelry, she was able to sell all of the jewelry at a very successful auction in July. Sharon and Steve, as Schwartz, I should say Sharon and Schwartzy, as we finally called him, were inseparable companions. On many days, they shared breakfast, lunch, and dinner together. Nothing made them happier than attending an art or craft show and finding the most perfect items of beauty. Everything they purchased was given deep thought in the choosing. At one point in their lives, their passion was gardening. They created a perennial garden that graced the fence in their yard. On one of their visits to Pittsburgh, the four of us hopped in the car and went for an afternoon of nursery flower shopping. For the two of them, it was like another treasure hunt for a new species for their garden. The loss of her beloved husband, Steve, left an enormous hole in Sharon's life. The love for her children, and especially her grandchildren, Ava and Max, helped to fill this tremendous void. But Steve was almost her other half. She lived life on her own terms, and she chose to leave on her own terms, and I hope she's finally at peace.
I'm going to call on Sharon's nephews, Lee, Andy, Jay, and Rob.
At every family occasion, Aunt Sharon's face would light up with a big smile, and she would greet us with a big, warm hug. When I was young, she would pinch my nose and call me Ricky Nelson. I would get embarrassed and smile even though I had no idea what she was talking about. When I was in middle school, she was one of my biggest boosters for my artwork, and for decades she prominently displayed one of my pictures in the living room at Cherry Hill, which I always appreciated so much. Growing up, she, Uncle Steve, and of course Kenny and Lisa were constant presences in our lives. There were summers in Long Beach Island, trips to Cherry Hill, get-togethers and holidays at my parents' and others' homes. My brothers and I would look forward to the annual Hanukkah Party in Cherry Hill, an amazing family tradition for the better part of 40 years. There were also the countless Passover Seder's where Uncle Steve would do everything possible to maintain order and hold it together as us kids would inevitably start to crack jokes. But throughout it all, Aunt Sharon would always beam with pride at having her family together, and especially as it grew over the years with her grandchildren and the children of her nieces and nephews. Throughout the years, as we grew into adulthood, she would always still be there on every occasion, with birthday cards in the mail every year and with messages to congratulate us on milestones, to tell us how proud of us she and Uncle Steve were. One year, she and Uncle Steve made the trip along with my parents to New Hampshire for Thanksgiving during a record blizzard. I can only imagine how stressful and tiring the flight and the drive from the airport must have been, but she was there for us. And it was something that my wife, Starla, and her parents appreciated very much for years to come. But above all else, she was an amazing aunt because she always spoiled us with her unconditional love and support.
I'm going to try not to be too repetitive with a lot of the themes that have come up, but I think of my Aunt Sharon. The words that immediately come to mind are loving, caring, thoughtful, generous, talented, creative. And I'm glad that time's gone by, made it into the obituary spoke about here, because she truly created something that was special and sustainable. And in that book, I mean, like, my biased or unbiased opinion is that it really came out awesome. I mean, it really was great. I mean, nothing to do with my aunt or her nephew. It really was remarkable. But when my Aunt Sharon, loved you, she loved you unconditionally, and she was a driving force behind many of my best childhood memories. Whether it was at the Jersey Shore, Beach Haven, or holidays that I mentioned, and her Hanukkah parties were second to none. And even as you being like just as unremarkable a kid as you could find, like, I mean, she would roll out the red carpet for us every Hanukkah, Passover, and when I was a kid, I used to devour her latkes. I mean, I loved them, and but when she saw how much I loved them, like, over the years, she always made sure that I would be the first one to get them, and like literally like blocking other people, and I did feel weird because there was definitely some probable jealousy in the room when I had to get them first. But and even when I was a kid, and my parents, they to wallpaper our bedrooms, they didn't trust professionals. They trusted Sharon Schwartz to come up, and they did an incredible job. I mean, that's how talented my Aunt Sharon was, and same with her life partner, Uncle Steve. And for me, it's just she was just more than an aunt. She was also a great friend, and I love her and miss her, and may she rest in peace.
There's going to be a lot of repetitive themes. So, the best way that I described my Aunt Sharon was that she was the fun aunt. She was the fun sister. She was the fun sister-in-law, friend, and the fun mother. She was Auntie Sharon, or El Sharona. She was married to the love of her life for over 50 years, a man most commonly referred to as Schwartzy, or at some time, Uncle Esteban. She went to Lucille Ball to Uncle Steve's Ricky Ricardo. She was Laverne to Susan Shirley. She was Mallory Keaton to Mark's Alex P. Keaton. That's a Family Ties reference, for the 80s people here. I know Passover has been brought up quite a bit, and Passover at the Schwartzes was less about the Israelites' exodus from Egypt. It was more about roasting Uncle Steve when he was trying to lead the Seder. And only Aunt Sharon could take a solemn Jewish holiday that involves bitter herbs and make it a laughing festival at the table. I had a childhood friend whose mother went to high school with Aunt Sharon. And she told me that Aunt Sharon was outgoing, fun, and always brought the positive vibes to the Highland Park High School, always. Even in high school, she was dating college guys, and we all know how that ended up. And Aunt Sharon was always about having the good times. She told me that and this is one of the few stories she told me about growing up, was that my father always would come home from school and do his homework. Aunt Sharon, that was not, she wanted to have fun first, then homework. And she never lost that fun side of her. She never lost that fun, lively spirit. And she always presented herself with a big smile and a joyous laugh. Whenever we saw her right before a Hanukkah party, or unfortunately even like 3 months ago, sitting right there, as soon as we locked eyes, she smiled and she laughed. That was, inside of her at all times. And everything that's being said about her, that was the true person that she was, and how she should always be remembered. And Sharon left us this gift. Of all these beautiful memories, and many, many fun stories that we'll continue to tell for many years in the future.
Oh. When my Aunt Sharon greeted someone, it wasn't just the typical hi, hug, kiss, how are you? Her face lit up, beaming smile, clenches of excitement in the signature, oh. I always enjoyed those greetings. I'm sure they made everyone here feel special over the years, and we'll miss them. Missing those greetings, that effusion of feeling, is missing Sharon herself, as they were so emblematic of who she was. She was a woman of unrestrained love. It's been a few years since we've been able to be together for holidays and special occasions, but the cards always came, no matter how often I moved, she'd somehow find them. More recently, she'd been sending gifts for our kids. One was a book about going number 2. She also had a wonderful sense of humor. And wouldn't you know, it's our 2.5-year-old daughter's current favorite. At bedtime this past week, she got this burst of giddiness. She held the book in the air and declared, "Aunt Sharon got this for me." So may her memory be honored in the God.
I took Spanish in high school, and so did my mother. My mother's name in Spanish in high school was Consuelo Verde Gelfand. Consuelo for Sharon, Verde for green, and Gelfand, in the Spanish tradition, her mother's maiden name. It became a running joke, and I always called her Consuela. Here's something I'd like to say about my mamacita Consuela. As most of you know, my mother was a sewing teacher, very proud of her degree in home economics. I assumed presumptuously that because of genetics, I'd be also excellent at sewing. So I took a 4-credit sewing class as an elective for my fashion merchandising degree. I was way, way over my head. I could pass the written test, but for the technical part, I was a complete failure. As my friend Robin Kleinrock from college, we were both miserable sewers, horrible sewers. So of course, who came to our rescue but my mom? Her and Schwartzy drove 4.5 hours and did our final projects with us. For us, not even with us. I had to make seams and I had to make a piece of clothing. I had bought a Donna Karan pattern and $200 worth of cashmere. Because I figured if it was cashmere and Donna Karan, I would wear it. We stood aside as she sewed away, and it was perfect. Both of our projects. Problem was, it was too perfect. And the professor would know, just by looking at it, that we had brought in a ringer. And she did it in about an hour, which would have taken me about a year. So, Mom to the rescue again. We made her, out of blinking an eye, do it again. But a little curved in the seams, so they weren't so perfect. And in the end, both Robin and I got A+s in sewing. When we should have gotten D's, more importantly. My teacher said, "I can't believe what a wonderful sewer you are." And I just said, "Oh, my mother was a sewing teacher." I got to spend extra time with my mom and dad and know that she would come to my aid whenever needed. She has done that many, many times since. I was so happy to be reconnected with her in the most recent of years and spending time with her and Schwartzy in their beautiful house in Florida. Especially about 10 years ago, together we went to a trip to northern Italy and Switzerland. And one day, you had to do what they wanted. We decided, screw them. We were going to go to Milan and shop. So we took the train from Switzerland into Milan, and previously we had bought tickets to see The Last Supper. So it was you had to go in a continuous glass box so the temperature was right and wouldn't ruin the painting. And then we went to what's called the Four Squares, which is the fashion district in Milan. And of course went into any designer store I wanted. And all of us got handbags. Sharon, myself, and my mom. I will always treasure our time together. If you don't know, my dad never failed at anything really, or it was a secret. And my mom told me this shortly after my father died, that, you know, he was in Bergen County and she was in Highland Park but going to Drexel, and he was at Rutgers, and they got set up on a blind date. And that last semester, my father failed math. He sucked at math. And so he actually stayed in New Brunswick over the summer to take math again. And that's how they became and decided to be a couple. And that's how Kenny and I became her kids. If it wasn't for math. I'm also at peace knowing that she's free from her pain and has joined her Schwartzy to be, or as we call them, the Schwartz, to be with him forever. I love you, Mom. My Consuela, rest in peace.
Ava and Max, would you bring your dad with you? And come on up here.
My grandma and pa were the best grandma and pa that you'll ever see. My grandma was loving, caring, and always brought me joy. My pa brought me happiness, to work hard, and a lot more. That would be a whole other speech, but bunch. A couple memories that I have with my grandma are I went to Broadway shows in New York, and they were really fun to watch. We loved to swim together at her pool in Florida, And the best memory was when she always rubbed my back. And it felt so good. I will love my grandma and pa to the end of my life.
My grandma was one of the best there ever was. When I was younger, we used to have sleepovers, and while Max was sleeping, she would wake me up, and we would have ice cream and watch movies together. That was called Boinky Boink Boink. Either going shopping for clothes or watching Stranger Things, we always had a lot of fun. I have to cut Ava's speech right here. Ava literally tortured my mother for the last month watching Stranger Things on like binge marathons, like a season a night. My mom would have her eyes wide open. My mom would fall asleep snoring. Ava would punch her to wake her up. It was the best like 3 or 4 weekends I've ever seen. My mom actually smiled and actually enjoyed it, so it was actually pretty funny. Yeah. So my grandma, let me see. Yep, Stranger Things. Okay, my grandma was the nicest, kindest, selfless person ever. Walking on the Ocean City boardwalks was always so much fun, and going into the pool too. I am so grateful that she was my grandma, and I will always love her and have her in my heart. I'm going to read the last line.
Grandma, I love you to the ends of the earth and back forever.
Good job.
Sharon's life revolved around family, love, tradition, and her cleanness. I can remember the first time I met Sharon. Kenny and I were dating a few months. He was so excited to introduce me to his parents. He always talked so fondly about them, and there was definitely a special bond they had, but especially Kenny with his mom. We went out that night to a beautiful restaurant. I can remember the outfit Sharon was wearing, a beautiful dark suit with a pin on the jacket. She looked so elegant, and always looked elegant as long as I've known her. The pin was the symbol for a Sagittarius. It stuck out at me. And little did I know that not only did we both share the same name, but we both shared the same birthday. It was a bond the two of us have shared for over 23 years, and every year Sharon would take me out for a beautiful lunch and always gave me a beautiful vintage or antique handbag. They were so beautiful, just like her, perfect. Now, when Kenny found out about our birthdays, I'm not sure he was so thrilled about it, but I think he knew in the end that I was a keeper. Sharon was a special woman. Her smile when she walked and lit the entire room. She was warm and engaging and cared so much about others. She did her best to make everyone happy because that's what she's ever wanted, to see her loved ones happy. The relationship Sharon and I had was not like any other mother-daughter-in-law relationships I knew. She treated me like her own daughter and invested her time with me. She took me to my first Broadway show. She bought me my first designer handbag, but most importantly, she was a mentor to me. She taught me so much in life. In fact, she helped me start my first business with a company that personalized baby gifts for families and companies who were celebrating new arrivals. She taught me how to run it, sell items, and make things happen. We went to buying shows in New York City, and she accompanied me to sell my items at gift shows. She was so proud of this business and helped me grow it. She was the biggest cheerleader and a great support. We had so much fun together. Her greatest role was that of a grandmother. She absolutely adored her grandchildren and would do absolutely anything for them. Ava and Max were her pride and joy, and she enjoyed spending time with them always, but especially in these last couple of years in Florida. She would take them to shows in New York City, to the best restaurants in the city. And lastly, she was about tradition. Tradition and family was so important to her. And I know we've talked about this over and over again, but one of our family traditions was the Hanukkah Party. There was she always loved to plan this event, and the lockers were out of this world. An invitation with a headline that read, "Lots of latkes," would go out 6 months in advance, and everyone knew they'd better be there. The latkes, we would make them from scratch, and we had Schwartzy make, probably cut up 10 pounds of potatoes, and me, Max, Kenny, and Ava, we would make the latkes. I love this time together with her and our family. It made her so proud to see that the tradition was being passed on to her grandchildren. Those Hanukkah parties would go on no matter what, whether there was winter storms or sickness in the family, the party went on. I thought about this a lot, and I think these went on because Sharon knew more than anyone else that family is everything, and even in bad times, we need to celebrate life and honor tradition. Another tradition was our time at the beach. When Kenny and Lisa were little, the families went on vacation in Beach Haven with the Green family. Sharon loved the beach. She used to go swimming all the time. Her and Mark called each other Sharka. And the entire family loved the beach. When Ava and Max were born, we started the tradition back again and would go yearly to Beach Haven and go to Fantasy Island and eat crust and crumbs. It was the best of times. And as time's gone by, we loved and continued this tradition. And despite the most profound sadness in our family, we're down the shore with the Green family right now, enjoying family, tradition, and love as Sharon would have wanted us to. I will love her forever. She was a second mother to me. And as my dad called her, a D diamond. Flawless and perfect in every way. She was a gem, and I know she will always be shining down on us. We will miss you and love you forever. You left us too soon, but we will stay strong and move forward as I know you and Schwartzy wanted us to, and I promise I will take care of Kenny, the kids, and the family. Rest.
Of times gone by, the story of Sharon G. Schwartz. If you've talked to my mom in the last 13 years, 8 months, even just once, you know that she started every, and I mean every, conversation bragging, and I mean bragging, about her beautiful and smart Evelina. Then, about 11 years ago, the conversation quickly adjusted not only to her Evelina, but her handsome and intelligent Max Paul. My mom's smile after those conversations could brighten up any South Florida rainstorm in a second. Obviously, it's a repeating thing. I'm not sure what the next steps will be in the healing process, but I know I will look to those smiles to carry on. Somehow, I have to find the inner strength to keep going for my family, just like my mom would and did. I always admired my mom's incredible strength that she exuded throughout her lifetime. No matter what the odds, my mother figured out how to keep going and keep living. One day, when I was pretty down and out, I asked her how she did it.
And she quickly smiled and replied how easy it was when she had everything in life right in front of her, with the best grandchildren, a remarkable daughter-in-law, and kids like Lisa and myself. At that moment, a weight lifted off my shoulders as I could sense a feeling of peace and happiness in her heart. Now, I will try to imagine that particular picture of that one smile in my head, along with her endless positivity to get through these dark days. Not only did people know my mom for her strength, but they knew her for her perfection, elegance, hospitality, intelligence, warmth, dedication, love, and all the other words that have been said today. I'm just repeating them at this point. My mom touched so many people's lives with her thoughtfulness and magnetic personality. All the stories that her family and friends have shared so far are a testament to her. I started writing a speech last night, and I really honestly got stuck about right here. I tried to figure out a way to kind of throw my sarcasm or my wit or my just general bluntness into this or whatever. And to be honest, I'm a little stuck, and I just can't figure out the next words, the next joke, or the next punchline. So I just kind of started looking for inspiration, looking for the next thing, and I came across an email, or actually a poem I wrote for my mom's 65th birthday when we went up to New York with the kids, and my mom got an awesome limousine and took us to Broadway, and we all went out, and it was a pretty awesome day for everyone. So this is the poem I wrote for her then, and I figured it's only 10 years later, so probably pretty applicable. Some petals of thought, a few words of times gone by. A good place to begin is always at the start, where little Kenny did not want to do his part. After a little bit of a fight, the day was through, and I couldn't just wait to meet my mom, who was you. We started off dealing with my teething, and then we ended up worrying about my breathing. Because if the asthma wasn't going to stop me, then it was going to be Dad for messing up a hyperbole. You always knew the right words to say. There was comfort day after day. You gave hugs, kisses, and even the willies. We could snuggle up on days that were chilly. I will never forget when I tossed the paper airplane with a precision throw. It landed in the middle of the top of the apple pie dough. You asked me to bring down the laundry and watch the wall. I wondered if it would be me or the wallpaper you would check if I would fall. I loved watching together the Eagles football game, even though the outcome was always the same. It never mattered, loss after loss. Our dinners were winners with Rice Krispie chicken and your pasta sauce. Summers in Beach Haven, now and before, I can't wait to go back more and more. When I went before as a child, and now I get to take mine and try to keep them mild. I try to be a loving, caring, and a warm parent like you, but a few words can't explain all that you do. You're the best grandma I know, and that Ava and Max are lucky to have you. Spoil them so. I will finish off the poem as I wrote it then. Today is about having a ball. Happy birthday to the best mom of all. So obviously, thank you. So obviously, with that, obviously living with my dad, I've been looking for just different inspiration over the last couple months to just try to, get on the right track. Whether it's, I've been meditating, or thank God for Max, riding my bike and playing basketball. He's keeping me busy. But one of the things I started doing, I was trying to check out things just to, be positive and get on the right direction. I started watching the TED Talks, and it was what brings happiness. And it was this TED Talk that Harvard has done for 100+ years. They've studied the lives of 1,000+ men throughout the Boston area. Rich, poor, black, white, religious, whatever. It didn't matter. It was just 1,000 men.
They literally have kept track over generations of these 1,000 men, blood types, psychological tests, schooling, success, whatever you could find data on these people. And they said the one thing they found out that brought happiness in everyone, no matter what, was meaningful connections. And I think that just defines my parents. They had that meaningful connection, they had that meaningful relationship, and that's what kept them going. I mean, they didn't care about, they're very modest people, and whatever you guys want to know that, but I think in the end, the message I can give you is just find that meaningful connection, hold on to it, and just love and live life. And, just want to end with that. Thank you all. I love you, Mom and Dad.
I sang this song at Schwartz's funeral, and I was told that it was you, Lisa. Well, Kenny, I don't know that Sharon got a hold of the song and listened to it hundreds of times. I would share it today anyway, but especially because I know it meant so much to her.
Shadows falling and I'm running out of breath. Keep me in your heart for a while. If I leave you, it doesn't mean I love you any less. Keep me in your heart for a while. When you get up in the morning and you see that crazy sun, keep me in your heart for a while. There's a train leaving nightly cold when all is said and done. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sometimes when you're doing simple things around the house, maybe you'll think of me and smile. You know I'm tied to you like the buttons on your blouse. Keep me in your heart for a while. Hold me in your thoughts, take me to your dreams, touch me as I fall into view. When the winter comes, keep the fires lit, and I will be right next to you. Engine drivers headed north to Pleasant Stream, keep me in your heart for a while. These wheels keep turning, but they're running out of steam. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-lo. Keep me in your heart for a while. Keep me in your heart.
Mourning is the price we pay for having the courage to love others. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit our loved one gave us cannot be measured or weighed, nor that can they be lost or even tarnished by time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of her light and her warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage, and in the fullness of time, healing and peace. We rise for the memorial chant.
תחת כנפי השכינה, עם קדושים וטהורים, כזוהר רקיע מסעירים את נשמת שרה חנה שהלכה לעולמה. ברחמים יסתירך בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתה. אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוח בשלום על משכבה, ונאמר Amen.
Fully compassionate God on high, to Sharon who has entered eternity, grant her clear and certain rest with you in the lofty heights of the sacred and pure, whose brightness shines like the very glow of heaven. Source of mercy, forever enfold her in the embrace of your wings. Secure her soul in eternity. Adonai, she is yours. May she rest in peace. Together we say, Amen. Please be seated. We will be leaving the chapel here at Platts for interment at Crescent Cemetery in Pennsauken, and following interment, the family will be gathering at Ponzio's Diner on Route 70 in Cherry Hill.
Will the pallbearers please step to the center aisle? And I'll ask that we can all rise once more, please.
Amen. למען שמו גם קירלי, the gates of Mavet lo yirara, כי אתה עמדי, שבטך ומשענתך עמה.